audio.
Hey, have you ever looked at the CSS box model and thought, why is this so confusing? So don't worry. In this video, I'll explain the CSS box model in the simplest and most practical way possible. By the end of this video, I guarantee you will clearly understand how it works and you won't need to watch any other explanation for this topic. So first thing first, what you need to know is the CSS box model says every HTML element, whether it would be headings, your paragraphs, maybe your divs, and other element, is simply a rectangular box in CSS. So what do you mean by that? So let's take an example of simply a div. So let's give it a name as simply box1 and simply a class with name as box1. So what I'll be doing with this is simply I'll be giving it a background color to show you what do you mean by a rectangular box. Let's go with this color. So see, this is your div that is simply a rectangular box. So now the box model says, so this is your content. Now the next is simply the padding. So if I go on and the padding, let's say 10 pixels. So this 10 pixel will get added on all the four sides, like top, bottom, left and right. So simply go to inspect and in the Chrome Dev Tools, see this. This is your content, then the padding, which is 10 on all the four sides. Then after the padding, we simply have the border. So now let's give it a border. So let's say 2 pixel, call it black. So now according to this, there will be border. So see, you got a border and again in the inspect Chrome Dev Tools, the content, padding and border. So according to the box model, next up we have the margin. And do you know, our browsers are so smart, they simply think the developers are fools. So they smartly give a padding and a border initially to the web page. So first, before getting into the margin, simply have this universal selector to remove the default padding and margin that the browser gave. Simply set the margin and padding to 0. Now the default margin and padding that the browser gave will get removed. See, now we simply have our padding 10 pixels and the border. Now according to this, the box model, let's have the margin as well. Margin as 40 pixels. And do you know, margin is simply the space between this element and the next element. So let's say we have one more element. So let's say it's a box 2. And you know, in CSS, every HTML element is simply a rectangular box and your margin says it's simply the space between the first element and the second element. So let's quickly have the same styling for this. Instead of this, some different color, right? So now we have two elements, simply two rectangular boxes. Now if I give the margin 40 pixels, so it will simply leave 40 pixel space between them. See, so we simply have the padding 10, then the border 2 and the margin 40. And if you simply want to have margin from bottom, you can simply give margin bottom to 40 pixels. or maybe margin left, let's say 30 pixel, and similarly margin top, let's say 20 pixels, and the last, that is margin right, let's say 10 pixels. So instead of writing this 4 times, what you can do, you can simply have the margin property. So it will be 20, then 10 pixels, then 40 pixels, and then 30 pixels. So this one will be your top. So how it works, top, right, bottom, and then left. So according to the box model, the content, then the padding, which is 10, then again the border, which is 2, and simply the margin, that is 20. And what about this 311 into 18? So it's the width and height of your actual content. So if you give width, let's say 200 pixels, and height to 50 pixels. So now your height is 50 pixels, whereas your width is simply 100 pixels. See, 100 into 50, then 10, 2, and 20. So till here, I don't think any of you might be having any issues, right? So now comes the most trickiest part. So let's say if the interviewer asks you what would be the total width and height of this box, then by saying this property, you will simply say width would be 100 and height would be 50. But that would be wrong. So CSS box model says the total width of this would be including the border and the padding as well. So how this thing will be calculated? So let's say here we have the width 100 and height 50. So as I told you, the total width and height would include the border and the padding. So this will be calculated like this. The border 2 from the left, then the padding from the left, that is 10, then simply the width, that is your actual width 100, then again the padding from right, that is again 10, then at last the border from right, that is 2. So your total width would be 124 pixels. And if I talk about the total height, then it would be again 2 pixel from top, 10 pixel padding from top, then 10 pixel padding from bottom, and then again 2 pixel border from bottom. Height will also include padding and the border. So height would be 50, the original height, along with border and padding. That is 74 pixels. And remember, margins are never added to the total space, that is width and height. And here also we have one more case. This width and height is for your default box sizing. It means by default, you simply have box sizing to content box. Even if you don't write this content box, by default, it will be this only. But when you change this to border box, so now the scenario will change. So now if the interviewer asks you the total width and height of this, you can simply say the width 100 pixel and height 50 pixels. So why this difference? So when you have this box sizing to border box, that time your width. So see, before this, the border box, it was the default, that is content box. So that time your size was this much, that is width and height was 124 pixel and 74 pixel, although we gave 100 and 50 pixel. But now when we change this box sizing to border box, this time the height and width got reduced. So now you can blindly say to the interviewer, when we have this box sizing border box, the width and height would be 100 pixel and 50 pixel. So why? Previously, the border and padding got added to this width, and similarly, this border and this padding got added to this height. But now what will happen? The size of this content will get reduced. It will shrink accordingly to fit itself within this range, that is 100 pixel and 50 pixels. So what do you mean by this? So this time it will be again, let's say for the width, what will happen? This border and padding will get counted, and again this padding and border will get counted as well. So this is 24 pixel and the original width was 100. So this content size will be the original width minus the border and padding, that is 24 pixel. So this will be the width, and for the height the similar thing, the 2, this 10, then again this 10 and 2, which is again 24, will get subtracted from this height, the original 50 pixel. So the height, would be 26 pixels and the width 76 pixels for the content. But this time the actual width would be 150. See, padding 10, then border 2, and as I told you, the margin never gets added, whether it would be the box sizing border box or the default content box. Margin is always excluded, and the content size 76 into 26, it got reduced to adjust within this range that we will give. So in short, if the interviewer asks about the total height and width, if it is border box, then whatever value you will give as width and height, you can simply say that would be the original width and height. But in case the default one, that is content box, things will change. So this was the most confusing part, where almost every developer gets stuck, and the interviewer always have few questions on this as well. So I hope you understood this in a much better way. So see you all in the next one. Till then, take care.